Good morning, MACPA members. I see our numbers uh, growing. That means you're getting logged in. Hopefully can hear and see us as we start our March town hall this morning. Give it a second because I see it numbers still jumping up. Take a sip of water. I also see several of you already in Conferences.io answering our polls, so thank you for that. And if you aren't in Conferences.io yet, I'll go ahead and switch slides so that you can see that there. Join us on Conferences.io. Let us know answers to some of these polls, and then we'll start walking through them. And thank you, Dee, for sending out that link. As always, we like to start with good news. I think it's important to especially, it's a sunny day, but the temperature dropped a little bit here in Maryland. We got a little bit of that false spring. But yes, I do see signs of spring. I have some bulbs starting to stick up out of the ground, which makes me happy. But let's see what's going on with you. Someone's birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday. Bought a new house. First grandson. Congratulations. Um, Retiring in December. Congratulations. Thanks for continuing to be part of the MACPA. I always really appreciate our legacy members and our retired members that continue to be such a source of wisdom in our community. Potty trained toddler. Congratulations. I know that that is no small thing. Uh, so we'll continue to go through vacation in Chile. Ooh, that sounds amazing. So lots of good things, positive things to start our day with. I want to just say thank you. So the last couple weeks have been a little crazy with what's going on in Annapolis, and so my positive focus, or good news this morning, is one of gratitude to thank you, our members, for your quick and overwhelming response. At MACPA, we don't go DEF CON 1 often, but you, our MACPA members, really were ready. Dozens of you submitted written testimony, emailed your representatives, and lots of you actually even joined us in person or virtually to testify in Annapolis just last week. I was so very proud of our profession there. I would say we were probably one of the ones most represented. While there was, 120, I think, in person signed up for testimony, which is overwhelming. Our profession really was visible. And I know this is one of the toughest times of year for you all to be there and ready. And so just so proud and grateful. I'm also proud to say that our voice was heard. But of course, there's still about 30 days, a little less than 30 days in our session. So the fight's not over. Those two specific House and Senate bills that we were talking about didn't move forward, but we're seeing elements of them in the budget bill. So right now, the House Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act, or the BRFA, includes a 3% tax on IT and data services. It has a whole bunch of other tax implications, of course, as well. We have a full blog post up right now on macpa.org/blog, where you can see all those different BRFA tax provisions. The House is expected to vote on that early next week. Then it will move to the Senate, and the Senate will likely have its own ideas about what to cut or to include. So, all that to say, the situation really remains fluid. Legislators heard us, I think, heard us well, but it's still fluid. So we'll continue to monitor all the developments alongside our amazing legislative executive committee and continue to provide you with updates and calls to action as we need. So thank you and stay vigilant. Keep looking out for our legislative newsletter, our blog, and we will continue to keep you updated. With that, I'll move to our demographic slides, see who we have with us today. Um, let's see, let the bars move a little bit. Lots of our retired members joining us, I see, which is always awesome. Um, we were to look at and add up the rest, looks like it would kind of represent what we see that looks like private company actually being a little bit higher there than usual with the public accounting firms. But of course, we're also in the midst of some of those busiest times. So we understand that maybe our demographics or our folks that we see usually on these town halls might look a little bit different this time of year. But thank you for being here. I do see we have an other as well. So if you want to put that in the Q&A, or you can put it in the other top challenge poll that will open as well, and just say, not a top challenge, just here's what you missed and where do you work. We'll be sure to consider adding that one. And then where or what position are you? We tend to have a pretty high level member at MACPA, which we are very grateful for, but we know also that we need to encourage some of our younger professionals to get involved, right? These are our future leaders in the profession, our future leaders at MACPA. And so thank you for being here, you C-suite, senior manager, manager level. But please encourage your colleagues, your younger colleagues, to get involved, provide them with opportunities, bring them along to events. That's one thing that I think has really shown young professionals the value, right? Sometimes to just show up by yourself is hard, but consider in the next event you go to MACPA, just bringing a young professional colleague along with you. We'd certainly appreciate that for the future of our profession. And then top challenges. So we'll watch this move around a little bit, although looks like it's pretty steady right now. Oh, and there it starts to move. So oh, now it's going to move a lot, so I'm just going to pause. Interesting that regulatory uncertainty and complexity certainly has always been a top challenge for our profession, right? Our profession is a one that both is in some ways created by regulatory uncertainty and complexity, and also certainly the most impacted. So what we're seeing both in Annapolis and then, of course, federally with some of the executive orders in particular, the expiring tax provisions coming up and things like that, that is certainly top of mind. But I see tied with that is the need for new skills, right? We're seeing an evolving profession, an evolving business environment. Those skills are certainly really important, and we want to provide those skills for you. We want to make sure that we're doing those things. So one of the questions is future town hall topics, one of the polls. So I just opened that. If there's topics that you're looking for, either through a town hall or if we need more learning opportunities, please let us know. Cybersecurity, certainly top of mind as well. Interesting to see that the finding talent, well-being of team, retaining talent, some of the things that we saw maybe as number one, two, and three in the past couple years, starting to slip a little bit. We've certainly continued to keep the eye on the ball there because that is a continued challenge, of course. One of those new skills that we all need is certainly with AI. And this actually kind of combines both that complexity in regulatory and the need for new skills or new tools around AI. We announced a partnership, I guess it was late 2024, so end of year, with a tool called BlueJay, tax research tool using AI. We've had some really great feedback on it, and I just wanted to put this in here because there is a offer that's expiring on just next month on April 15th for, I believe this is 60% off the standard pricing. So take advantage of that as an MACPA member, receiving that discount while you can. And I believe there was also a demo webinar if you need a little bit more information that we can send you or we might have on demand somewhere as well. And then in terms of those new skills, not just new tools using AI, but actually using AI ourselves and understanding how it works. We, back in the fall, launched our AI pilot program with rave reviews. We've now rolled it out in, I guess we've had two cohorts, both in the AI foundations, kind of more basic understanding of AI and skills, and then the impact course, which really dives deep into accounting and finance tools and how you can use specifically ChatGPT. Really grateful for Byron Patrick, MACPA past chair, and Twyla Bernhorst, who've been teaching this for us. We're excited to actually have them in person in a couple of weeks on April 29th. They will be in person at our MACPA Converge event on the 28th. That event is combining our government contractors, our GNFP, and our business and industry conference for one big event. Really excited about. But they're going to stick around and we're going to do an AI Foundations really hands-on workshop. So this is a really great opportunity for you all to uh, get to have conversations with each other, bring teams, work on real solutions using ChatGPT. So it also includes virtual office hours with Twyla and Byron, monthly update calls, and on-demand course access. So really excited to announce that we're going to have this AI Foundations course in an on-demand self-study, self-pace format starting in May, I believe. And so this will get you not only that in person, but then have something to refer back to and kind of refresh on. So exciting opportunity for you all. Hope that you can join us for that. And with that, we're going to move into our town hall topic today with Laura Jansen. Laura probably looks very familiar to a lot of you. She's the VP of Sales for the Capital Area Core Market. She's been with ADP for over 15 years. 11 of those years she's spent leading teams of human capital management consultants to service both accounting firms and their clients. Laura's been a great friend of the MACPA at our beach retreat, at our conferences, great speaker. And today she's going to bring us some of the updates of what they're seeing, kind of 2025 trends in human capital. Such an important topic for business and our profession in particular. So I'm going to stop sharing and allow Laura to share her screen. Thank you so much, Laura, for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. Always appreciate being back with the MACPA. It's a, great group of individuals. I know many of you guys personally. We work with your firm, we work with your clients, and excited to talk to you about, honestly, a lot of the trends that you were just saying were things you're struggling with within your own firm, within the profession, that's really continuous across the entire business landscape. So Rebecca did a fantastic job introducing me, but been with ADP. I think I need to update you guys. It's going over 18 years at this point, which is getting kind of scary, how fast time flies. But it's been a really awesome career in getting to understand both how organizations make workforce management decisions and at the same time live those decisions as a business leader inside of ADP, running my own team of associates and looking at how the challenges that my clients are facing that we're trying to solve with ADP's technology manifest within my own organization and need that same level of attention and attunement to make sure that we're providing the best employee employee experience. We're getting the best quality candidates. We're upskilling and reskilling them to always service you and your clients in ways that are going to be the most beneficial. So we're going to talk about a couple different areas today. What's going on out there right now? What are people saying? What am I hearing from the C-suite that we meet with? I'm going to talk to you about the top trends that we're seeing emerge for 2025 that HR and business leaders are truly trying to put some effort, time, and thought behind, and how it's manifesting inside of those organizations. Some considerations and opportunities for you as advisors, as consultants for your own client base or within the organization. And while I drop that Q&A at the end, please feel free to dump questions in the chat as we go through. And Rebecca, please chime in, interrupt. I'd love for this to be more interactive than me just spewing data and information to you guys for the next call, 35, 40 minutes this morning. But I don't think the next slide is going to be any surprise. It's been a turbulent start to 2025. And what we're hearing from CEOs, this is backed up by the confidence index that's done by the Chief Executive Group, is confidence is kind of waning right now in what that business environment looks like between the changes in tariff laws, between interest rates being stagnant. I think a lot of us were hoping that they were going to come down, particularly those of us that recently bought a house and are hoping to refinance at some point. Inflation still being high, although I read a nice article about the price of eggs starting to drop. So we are getting a few wins there. But overall, business leaders are uncertain about what the next 6 months are going to look like, and makes making decisions on what direction to take their business, how to manage their talent, how to engage with vendors and with clients. It makes it that much more difficult. And there's a good mix of where organizations are in terms of how confident they are and what we're going to be facing in terms of a recession or a backsliding of the economy, with almost half of organizations thinking that we're going to hit either a mild to severe recession over the next 6 months. And very few have that confidence that these headwinds are going to relieve themselves soon, and we're going to start operating in a great business landscape that's primed for growth, that's primed for the opportunity to take our businesses to the next level. And that means there's a lot of considerations that need to be made with what we're doing with what we have today in terms of talent, in terms of assets, in terms of the future planning that organizations had even 6 months ago, making decisions on how they were going to take their organizations. One of the biggest areas we're seeing is with talent. And as much as business leaders are making decisions about how they should move forward with their own organizations, employees are having that same feeling. And while we had that great resignation coming out of COVID, where there was that rapid changing of talent from organization to organization, what we're seeing now is more of a nesting, where employees are sitting back, they're uncertain about what the market's going to look like. They don't want to jump ship and be the first in, first out at an organization that may have to go through some downsizing or layoffs. So they're kind of holding tight at the organizations that they're in. Now, this gives our companies that we're working with a really unique advantage to wrap their arms around these employees, upskill them, redeploy them into different areas of the company, show them that we care about them and we're invested in their growth. But we have to pay attention to what's going on. About half of all organizations are looking at an employee today thinking like, wow, Susie's really loyal. We're lucky to have her. And what Susie's doing is just sitting back, biding her time until that next great opportunity comes to her. So we can't confuse loyalty with that nesting behavior. The employees that have been here a long time are still doing the work. They're getting the documents out. They're getting the projects completed, but they may also still have their eye on what that next opportunity is. And they're not going to be reluctant to leave the organization when the right opportunity presents itself, at the right compensation, at the right work environment, at the right benefit level. So as you're looking both for yourself and within your own organization, pay attention to who you're surrounded by, how you're engaging with them, what type of engagement you're seeing them have within the organization, within their type of work, to help determine, is this somebody who is a loyal employee, or is this someone who might be at risk at leaving my organization the next 3 to 6 months, and taking all of that knowledge with them, which is one of the scariest part, as we saw upskilling and reskilling as a top trend that you guys are all looking at for yourselves and for your clients as we come into 2025. Education, hot topics, student loans, nothing anyone ever wants to deal with. And we're starting to see the newer generation come in with Gen Z and really change how they're going about getting their education and engaging with the workforce from a different standpoint. So we've watched the enrollment into four-year institutions over the last 5 years slip by about 5%. Associate's degree enrollment has slipped by almost 14% over that same amount of time, but vocational school enrollment is jumping up at almost 5% over that same 5-year period. So employees are looking to engage with the workforce in a way that's giving them the valuable skills that they'll need, but also get paid to learn on that job. And we'll see this as one of the trends as we talk a little bit deeper about what's going on with talent, with that desire to have new skills and have skill-based hiring compared to some of the old hiring profiles and models that we have that work for certain industries, work for certain vocations, but maybe isn't the way that every organization should be looking at the market and getting the best talent inside of their doors. This has already been spread all over the first part of our town hall this morning, but AI, it is out here as a freight train. Inside of the workforce, we've seen more than a 2,000% increase in job postings that are referencing AI-based skills. So not necessarily the coding and developing, but looking for associates that are comfortable using AI, engaging in how they're doing work day to day. And there's a big mix of excitement in what this opportunity brings to workers and to organizations, but also a concern about whether it'll be replacing or displacing talent, how AI is being used ethically within organizations, what it means for future proofing that company. And we'll talk a little bit deeper about that today in terms of talent, in terms of compliance, as well as in terms of the different technologies that we're all looking to bring inside of the walls of our companies. And those right there are the three big trends that we're going to be hitting on today. So talent, huge, huge conversation. We're ADP, we're workforce management. So talent is obviously at the forefront and at the core of every decision we're making. But Gen AI is huge in terms of how organizations are looking at getting talent in the door, how they're managing that performance, how they're skilling and upskilling associates. They're using in terms of things like employee well-being to promote better work-life balance, integration, however you want to frame it up, making sure the employees know that they're cared for by the organization, and really ultimately identifying the right skill sets that employees need to be successful and that companies need to fill the gaps that they're seeing as the boomers exit with a lot of institutional and skill-based knowledge. And then finally, with the remote workforce, we saw this happen during COVID. It's still a big trend within organizations. We're working across multiple borders, whether it's within the United States or looking at a broader world demographic. Organizations are finding that they can access great pools of talent, but there are still some challenges in doing so. Compliance, we talked about regulatory compliance is another one of the trends, and every day there's new laws that are coming out, and many of them have teeth behind them. Gen AI is at the forefront of different regulatory visibility to make sure that it's being done in an ethical manner for organizations, and that there's still kind of this human oversight into how organizations are implementing this technology within the company. Pay equity, pay transparency, very large topics of conversation, both from a federal and a state level. And then there's been a number of wage and hour developments that are both been put into place and at the forefront of legislation right now that'll be impacting how organizations have to work with employees on both a federal and a state level. From a technology standpoint, Gen AI will continue to revolutionize HR, how jobs are found, how candidates are placed inside of them, and how the workforce is managed day in and day out. It's going to help create an expanded skill set that organizations can tap into or develop internally. And then ultimately, it's going to tie back into that well-being that we're looking to offer employees to ensure that we're getting the best caliber and best quality employee inside the organization. We can retain them long-term to do great things for our company. So inside of talent, right now, about 85% of workers are believing that AI is going to impact their job in some way or function. One of the areas we've seen some of the strongest adoption so far is in the recruitment practices that organizations are using, from screening resumes to matching resumes to job functions. It's a great way to help save HR time and sifting through a lot of this data. But one thing you have to remember is that AI is not foolproof. Sometimes the best skills, the experiences an employee can bring to the table, they're not as visible on paper. And we want to make sure that technology isn't discounting some of the best talent that's in the market because it's just reading words. It's just making decisions based on a little bit of information that the organization's been able to provide about what a good fit, what a skill set looks like. So really having that human oversight will ensure that employees and candidates are treated fairly and appropriately from day one coming into the organization. And it'll give them the ability to save time as they go through that whole function. One of the big areas that we've been seeing with companies is matching those different skill sets to the resume, but then having that back view from an HR practitioner or from a recruitment team, depending on the size of the organization, to start looking at some of those quote unquote discarded resumes to see if anything's slipping through the cracks that they can put back in, and through the machine learning, make AI even smarter for that organization. That oversight is absolutely critical to have when you're leveraging technology inside of employment practices to make sure that we don't have discrimination and we're also not discarding the wrong talent that we would want inside the company. Employee experience, this is front and center. And employee experience, it's starting with that initial candidate interaction. It's the way the employees are viewing the organization, the way they're thinking about it, the way they're engaging with their direct leader, with HR, with the technology that they're being given to both do their job and manage their own information. And 92% of employees who feel cared for by their employer, they're more likely to be engaged with their work. Engaged employees drive higher productivity. Higher productivity drives higher profitability for organizations. And with those employees that say, I feel cared about by employer, about 65% of them will remain more loyal. So these are the ones you have to worry about being those nesting employees that are on Indeed after hours or maybe during hours looking for that next great job. They truly want to do more within the organization, grow their careers, and give back to the company that's giving so much to them. What we're seeing is, employers are looking to personalize that employee experience, whether it's how they engage with the workers, the development that they're offered, the types of benefits that they receive. And, at the end of the day, they're asking employees what they want. And the overrounding question is the employees want personalization. They want to be able to choose what's going to be most important to them based on their lifestyle, based on the direction they're looking to take their careers, based on the engagement they're looking to have with their direct leadership. So organizations need to be able to, one, have a way to collect this information, but two, have a good partner, whether it's with their broker team, whether it's with their HR advisor internally, to make sure that they're able to diversify their approach for employees. And it's not just the traditional medical, dental, vision benefits that many of us who've been in the workforce for a long time think about when it comes to employee benefits. It's things like flexibility and how I go about doing my work. As long as the project's done by the deadline that it's been asked for, does it matter that it's being done between the hours of 8 and 5? Or can I do it between the hours of 10 or 6? Or I'm an early bird. I want to be online at 6, but I want to be off by 2:30 so I can spend the afternoon with my kids, go to their soccer games, put dinner, put them in the bath, and put them to bed. So organizations personalizing the way employees do work, but still ensuring that they've got a good way to measure that productivity and that output so that they've got that fairness across the entire workforce. It's a complicated area for organizations to delve into, but when they nail it, they find themselves enjoying higher retention of the best employees within the organization, which is leading to that overall productivity and profitability of the company. Skill-based. You guys talked early on about that trend, looking for needing new skills out in the organization. As technology is coming more and more front and center, how are we matching what employees are doing in to the skills that they need? Now, certain vocations, certain professions are going to require things like college degree required or preferred. You can't be a CPA without going through the college and a credentialing process. But for someone like a sales organization, a college degree isn't really a priority for somebody that's coming into my organization, but I need someone who has the skills of critical thinking, problem solving, great ability to communicate inside of different arenas to be able to help organizations understand what their challenges are and connect them to ADP solutions. So when you're going through and looking at the way you're going to find talent or the way you're talking to your clients about going out and finding talent, how are they framing it up? Is it really necessary to have that degree preferred? Or is it better to go based on that skills-based hiring where you're bringing in the right skill set, regardless if somebody got that experience through military experience, volunteer experience, or the traditional 4-year college graduate school path that we need? And then the geographical dispersion. So we saw this, 50 years ago, this wasn't possible. You couldn't have employees working in multiple states that were connected on a near minute basis to collaborate on projects to get them over the finish line. But today, it's almost the new norm that we're working in as talent has become more and more geographically dispersed. It's not unusual for me to work with an organization down in the DMV area to find out that HR sits in Chicago. Most of their programmers are working from home, and the only people who are coming into the office might be C-suite, project managers, maybe some people that are in some sort of administrative function, where it's ability, though, to still engage, collaborate, and communicate with these. One of the challenges we are seeing emerge more and more over these last several years with this dispersed workforce is promotion abilities. So not having that direct face time with your leader, not necessarily having the leader see how you're engaging in the office, the type of work you're doing. Are these employees getting looked at and viewed with the same promotion ability as a traditional office-based worker? So it's important as organizations do become more geographically dispersed to have really good performance management metrics so that they can understand how employees are putting up the right numbers or putting out the right output for the organization so that they're not overlooking the best candidate to move into that next position, maybe lead a team, take on new challenges, move into a different area of the company where they can provide some cross-functional support.
Hey, Laura, we did have a question come in around specifically this remote work, and then the idea that with more companies requiring or having the return to office 4 to 5 days, we see the federal employees kind of all called back into office. Any advice on managing team members, employees? That they specifically said in the question, given that employees have developed a sense of entitlement to work remotely. What are you seeing around that, or any kind of specific advice around managing those employees and that, I guess, sense of entitlement that they see?
Yeah, I think both within my own organization, the organizations that I'm meeting with, it becomes that performance management side. What are the expectations that this employee is to deliver? And are they meeting them at home on time in a meaningful way? Are they representing the organization well? If they are, what's the drive to bring them back into office? Why do we want them in there? Is it only because we want to put eyes on them and make sure that they're punching the clock from 8 to 5? And if so, does that really matter if they were able to do that same quality and quantity of work working from home? Other times there were organizations say, well, I want to bring them in because I miss the knowledge, or I miss the collaboration, I miss the connection that those organizations have. And that's fantastic. And it's something that I've had to balance within my own company of bringing my employees in, but then we all go into separate rooms and we sit on Zoom meetings all day and we just see each other as we run to the bathroom or hit the water cooler. If I'm bringing my employees in now, it's because we're doing some sort of collaborative session where I put everybody in one room and we're whiteboarding or we're role playing or we're talking about, these HR trends as a group, things that we can't do online or virtually. To bring employees in just for the sake of having them in the office, we're seeing backfire more and more. And we're seeing those organizations face a little bit of a higher turnover. And, it becomes more unstable with that company when they're constantly turning those employees and they're losing some of that knowledge share out the back door.
Absolutely. Yeah. And someone just came in with another question, I guess kind of related, about reasonable reimbursements for home office supplies, including furniture. So as more people are remote or have, like my husband's, they just closed their office. They said it's not worth forcing people to come in. Let's just everybody
Mhm.
work at home. Is that something you're seeing across companies? Anything like that?
A mixed bag. I've seen it with some organizations, not highly popular, not something that they've been talking to us much about. However, if employees are going to be sitting at home, making sure that they do have a good setup in a quiet place, that they've got an ergonomic chair. So now you don't end up with, well, I was sitting on my dining room chair. My dining room chair is the most uncomfortable thing in the world. I tried working there for one day and ordered myself one from Staples. So there's no way I can spend 8 hours sitting in this chair day in and day out. And because I made the bad decision on furniture, I don't want to then tell my employer, well, now I have back problems, I have hip problems, and this is a workers' comp issue. So there probably is some sort of balance you want to look at and talk to your insurance provider from a workers' comp or liability standpoint. But it's also going to be a budgetary consideration to make sure that you're not paying for employees to outfit this nice office that looks like what the CEO used to sit in your own office. So I've not seen anything specific, seems to be very much an organizational and budgetary decision, but it is something that I would consider in terms of employees' comfort and employees' well-being, that there is somewhere that they can do that work, especially if they're going to be seated virtual meetings for a long period of time. It's a great question. So, a couple of things that we've seen. I love this quote, and I generally don't like to read PowerPoint slides, but I'm going to read this one to you. Remote work and the evolution of technology has made it possible for us to have 5 to 6 different ways to communicate with each other at any given time. Sometimes it's great, but it also means we're more connected than ever. And this can greatly impact mental health and employee stress because work and life are so integrated and intertwined. One of the best things leaders can do is help employees set boundaries that will give them more balance and ultimately result in better employee well-being. As I was putting together this deck and I grabbed this slide from Jason, our Chief Talent Acquisition Officer at ADP, I was thinking about one of my leaders this week. And we were going back and forth on emails. We were working on a presentation for a client that we're going to be putting in front of them. And we're sending the PowerPoint back with different notes. We were part of 2 different Teams chats on implementations that we were engaging in. This is all within one afternoon. We had our side chat where we were talking about the people inside of the other chats. We were texting back and forth about an employee situation that we were trying to work through together. And at the same time, we're on Instagram sending each other memes about workplace and funny things along those lines. So one person in my organization, I was communicating with in 6 different fashions about 6 different topics. For me, I love having my brain split like that. I love the bouncing red ball. It feeds the ADD side of me. But for a lot of people, it can feel very overwhelming. Where do I go for this? What do I do for this? Oh my gosh, this is binging. Oh my gosh, now they want me here. Wow, I just got an email. Couldn't we just talked about that on the phone at the same time? So telling your employees how it's okay to communicate, how it's okay to set boundaries. Go ahead and put your do not disturb on for a couple hours while you're working on that project for the client. Sometimes employees need to hear that from their direct leader, especially with the Teams chat, the Slack chats, and the remote workers, is they have this anxiety if they're not showing green, their leader's going to think that they're not doing work. And maybe in some cases they're not. That's where that performance management comes in and ensuring that you've got good, clear policies that you're working on. But in a number of times, it allows them to have that breath that they need in order to really focus and produce quality work. But without permission from their leader, they're not going to feel that need to do it. And that's going to make them feel more uneasy, more anxious, and ultimately possibly look for another organization that they may feel before they get there is going to give them more of that flexibility, more of that freedom. So things like weekly one-on-one meetings with your direct leader, and I think this is especially important for remote employees, where you're talking about, all right, what are the priorities we're getting through this week? What are the deliverables we're looking for? Where do you need me to step in, remove obstacles, help escalate, guide, whatever? And then how did we do on last week's deliverables? By having that weekly routine check-in and constantly aligning with the employee on the work that they're doing, their near-term priorities and the success that they're having, it's going to, one, create actually more autonomy during the week, that they're getting that work done and they're doing it in a way that's going to make the organization look good. But it's also going to give you the ability to see those gaps a lot quicker than 3 or 6 months of somebody who's watching March Madness for the next 2 weeks, because I know that's going to happen for a number of people. So, hey, great. If you're watching March Madness because you are a basketball fanatic, that's amazing. But you got the client project out, you got the presentation done, you're prepped and you showed up and you represented well for meetings, like check, 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 we're good. Versus, hey, like, you were supposed to have this stuff done a few weeks ago. What happened? Why didn't it get done? You can make quick changes in the moment, plan for it, and employees do actually appreciate that. They like knowing that what's expected of them, that they've met those expectations, but in many cases, having that autonomy to get the work done how and when they want to. So as long as they don't need to be answering the phone to direct calls or be at the office to let people in the door, sometimes that extra flexibility with those guardrails can go a long way for an organization in attracting and retaining the best talent within a company. Learning and development opportunities, back to that reskilling and upskilling. What is the organization doing to help encourage employees to go out and develop new skill sets? Is there some sort of learning management system that's intrinsic within the organization that they can tap into for either an assigned curriculum or allowing them to kind of go shopping for new skill sets that may interest them? You may have an employee that you didn't recognize was going to be a great fit for a future position, but they're so interested in technology. They're so interested in AI. They don't have experience with it, but with some upskilling, with some education, they could become the forefront of that organization, piloting new technology, ingraining it within the company, and finding some of the benefits that come from that. The new collar workforce, the tapping into the vocational skills and degrees for anyone who's got children that are you know getting towards college. Is it going to be the best use of your money, their money? How much student debt are they going to walk away with? Do they have a propensity for vocational skills? The newest millionaires that are joining the United States, millionaire club, are all in vocational skills. It's plumbers, it's electricians, it's HVACs. So what we used to be like, ooh, that's what my child's doing, is now like, hey, absolutely go that route, walk away with zero debt and the ability to start making meaningful money immediately. It's a great way to build a career. And then the return to office. So pivoting back to that question that we had just a little while ago, we're seeing a lot of those mandates fail. We're seeing a lot of reluctance and pushback from employees who said, but you told me I wasn't allowed to go to the office for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half in some cases, and I got my work done. I did what I was supposed to do. I did it well. Why do I have to drive 45 minutes into the office every single day? Especially for those of us in the DMV area, like getting on 495. If I go to my Arlington office, I live a little bit north of Baltimore. I skip the gym in the morning. I leave my house at 5:15 just to avoid the traffic because I can get to Arlington in an hour and 20 minutes. If I leave my house at 6 o'clock, it's a 2.5 hour drive. Now, I always want to go in the office and see my people, but it is a balance because one of the things I love doing is starting my day with a workout at the gym, and I have to compromise that in order to go into the office or spend 2.5 hours in the car just going in, and oftentimes to sit on a bunch of virtual meetings that could have been done from home. So again, it's not that we don't want employees in the office, but why are we bringing them in? Are we making it meaningful? And are we explaining that and co-designing what that's going to look like with the employees?
Laura, you mentioned L&D and the skills development part. So I did want to add this question that just came in around companies training, doing AI training skills for their team. And so are you seeing companies do that? And if yes, what kind of trainings are you seeing? I thought it was really interesting that you mentioned the are we investing in our team to go find things themselves, or are we, there's two kind of ways to do that. So what are you seeing in terms of AI training?
Yeah, so larger companies, if you think about the enterprise size companies, I've heard many of them creating almost sandbox environments where employees can go and play in, and they're talking about AI almost as like video games. Like it takes time to play in it and understand the strategy and what step you're going to take and what's going to happen in order to meaningfully use some of this technology. Personally, I love plugging stuff just into Chat GPT to see what it's giving me compared to what I'm getting from the research I'm doing myself or what maybe I'm pulling out of my CRM system. So one is the encouragement that they go out and they try things. Again, with guardrails to make sure that we're not releasing company information, that privacy laws, all of that are taken into effect. Many learning management systems have different AI paths and courses that you can take. So by investing in that for your organization. And, if you go out and shop learning management systems, you can find them incredibly affordable from a couple dollars per employee per month to a pretty significant investment, depending on what you're looking for. But almost all of them at this point have some sort of AI education component that you can share with your workforce. And then many of the technologies we're using are starting to layer in an AI component. So creating, working with that technology vendor to see if maybe they have a sandbox environment that you can take advantage of to put your employees in. Our CRM system inside of ADP is where my team next week is actually joining a pilot where it's going to help us identify companies that are in the buying cycle so that we can market to them at the right timing. Where before, this was stuff that we kept in Excel, we were manually tracking, we were kind of sifting through every Friday. We'd look through our database to figure out what accounts do we think might be the best ones for us to market to over the next 30 or 60 days based on upcoming business triggers or things that we know. And now AI is going to collect that information from a number of sources and say, these are the 20 companies that are probably most primed to receive your marketing right now. So that sandbox environment is going to give my employees a taste of how AI can make their job easier. And at the same time, I'll be able to give feedback to corporate if this is going to be worth the longer term investment for us to make. So a couple different ways that you can start leveraging that within the organization.
Of course, and I'll just give another plug. We do have our AI Foundations course coming up in person, but then also a lot of different AI things. So if there's a lot of resources on the macpa.org page around both the courses that we're offering that are more, in depth, and then some to just try and get to learn a little bit more. I saw somebody with the topic of AI and ethics. I believe we have a course like that as well. So check those things out.
Great segue, because one of the top regulations we're starting to see come into the market is all around AI and laws limiting how it's used, what that overall governance needs to look like. European Union last year implemented their AI regulations, which are regulating how organizations can program AI, how it can be used, and what sort of audit and oversight procedures are needed. Colorado has recently adopted almost a mirror image of what that regulation is, and it's going into effect in 2026. New York City actually has AI regulations around candidate selection that in any candidates inside of New York City for employers in New York City or candidates based in New York City need to be able to select out of AI screening purposes if they see fit. So it has to be disclosed that we use AI to do either resume combing or skill-based matching, and you have the opportunity to opt out and receive human oversight as well as the decision from an actual human in that. So we have a lot of states that are starting to look at it for their own state legislator, as well as the federal government look at some oversight that they'll provide for that use of it. But the big thing is any AI you're bringing into the organization, you want to make sure you're doing it in an ethical and compliant manner. You're keeping that human oversight on it, especially as AI gets smarter. So right now, it's still new technology. The cool thing is the more it's used, the more it's going to learn and the better it's going to become. But especially in the early days with an organization, you want to make sure somebody understands how to use it. They're looking at the applications, they're checking behind it to make sure that your organization isn't using anything in a discriminatory manner, or that privacy information isn't being, personal information isn't being deployed for keeping your employees' stuff private. Big ones, a lot of our conversations are centering on right now, pay equity and pay transparency. As we look at some of that talent changing over, more and more more and more states are enacting pay transparency. So Maryland, for example, any job postings that are out there have to have that salary range disclosed up front. DC also has that requirement. Virginia's weighing adding that requirement in right now. So making sure that that is public information, but it's also helping employees realize where they have gaps in what they may be earning for the skills that they have. Right now, inside of the United States, women are still paid 13% lower than men for equal skills and equal workload, and this discrepancy is even larger for minorities. So organizations in many states are requiring more pay equity applications where you're understanding what you're paying your employees. You're able to either either address those gaps, and by addressing, you need to bring up the lower paid employee, not reduce the pay of the higher paid employee, or being able to just explain why there's such a discrepancy in that pay. Hey, these two employees are both sales associates, but this one brings in 150% revenue of what this one does, and we make our annual compensation increases based on their revenue production. That could be a justifiable reason why two people with similar tenure in a similar role may have different base pay rates. But EEO is looking to start collecting more and more pay information, and they're going to be starting to address that on a federal level. If organizations are assessing and addressing now, a lot of times states are not putting out any sort of penalties or fines for it, but that's going to quickly change. Everyone should be aware that this is a big issue out in the states right now and taking care of it. So from internal or working with your clients, do they have some strategy in place to identify where there may be gaps in their pay equity? And if so, what's the pathway to address it appropriately? And then wage and hours going crazy. It's always gone crazy. We saw last year where they had brought up the minimum wage for overtime exemption. That was recently repealed by the court down in Texas. But there's still some concern in how employees are being paid and how things are being managed from that standpoint. We're seeing two big trends that are being looked at. One is overtime and federal income tax that's being weighed if we'll continue to tax employees on any overtime hours that they're earning, and then tips. If tipped income should be subject to income tax, which as a former server, I'm going to be a little bummed if all of a sudden I should have kept all of that money. But with something to keep an eye on, it changes not just on a federal level, but states are enacting more and more of their own regulations. And as we look back at that remote workforce, it becomes more complicated for employers that have employees operating in minimum states to ensure that they're following all of this, both federal and state guidelines for the jurisdictions that they're operating in. So it becomes more and more important to have an advisor like yourself giving some consultation or working with a vendor that has compliance and tax expertise that can ensure that organizations are compliant as they expand and cross different state borders. So a couple of acronyms that are probably familiar to all of us, but we know have changes and things coming in stores. So EOC and FLSA, just talked about the pay equity, pay transparency, as well overtime exemptions. We expect those to continue to change over the next several years and require more visibility, more reporting from organizations. The NLRB, we're seeing more unionized activity. So we're seeing a lot of activity from them to ensure that that activity is being done, that those employees aren't being discriminated against. They've got that ability to mobilize and unionize and fight for fair and equitable pay and worker environments within the organizations they operate in. OSHA, front and center, especially as again, we look back towards remote workforce, employees doing work in different capacities. How are we still ensuring that our employees are being kept safe and taken care of? So we can expect continued oversight on that site. 1099s, if you remember, if you heard me talk back a couple of years ago, there was a huge rise in the gig economy, particularly during COVID, as organizations were shutting down, as a lot of, think restaurants and, retail stores were no longer open to provide those services out. And a lot of these workers went and found different gigs and were being treated as 1099s. So a lot of oversight to understand what qualifies as a 1099, meaning that behavioral test, that financial test, to ensure that they're being treated properly, and organizations, one, aren't taking advantage of it, two, they get all the benefits that should be afforded to them. We saw in Maryland a few years ago with the particularly home health agencies and how they were treating 1099 workers, and the ability to classify someone as a 1099 resulted in a huge reclassification of a big part of the workforce to W-2 labor. And now they're going back and they're auditing to make sure that every organization read that law to a T and enacted it within the organization. And then many states are starting to enact their own laws behind what can and can't be treated as a 1099. We've seen the most activity in California and the Pacific Northwest with how workers are being treated. Uber, I don't know if you know this, they recently reclassified themselves as a technology company because of that 1099 issue where the transportation workers were being treated as 1099s. And there was a lot of discrepancy against California state law with how that was being operated. So Uber went back and said, we're just a technology company that provides an application. These are now subscribers that are taking advantage of this technology to be able to earn revenue through the way we provide connections out in the workforce. So lawsuits are certainly going to be on the rise. Fines and penalties are going to be on the rise. 2022, I think there was about $515 million that was paid out for workforce discrimination. New York City pay transparency, that's a big one. New York City has some serious teeth behind it, but violating their pay transparency, so the salary bands on the job descriptions can result in fines of up to $250,000. And then one thing on the horizon that I think we're talking about in a couple of months, but different states are enacting different leave acts. So similar to FMLA, many states have put sick and safe leave in and are now looking at state mandated leave and how that's going to be accommodated for and paid for through organizations. So be on the lookout for the update for what's going on with Maryland. I know Delaware recently put one into effect, and we're starting to see it pop up more and more across the country. So again, employers with remote workforces need to be attuned to what those different requirements are to be in compliance with the jurisdictions with where they're operating. So hitting on technology, I know we're getting up towards the end, but we've talked a lot about AI. It's not going anywhere. It is across all different types of technology that we're already using day to day within the company. Even just thinking about being on Facebook, when you go to write a post, you can have Meta draft that post for you. So it's a forefront of what we're doing, and organizations that are starting to harness this power are finding ways to be more innovative, help employees engage with their jobs in a different way, because it's taking out some of the tactical work they do and it's allowing them to focus more on the meaning of what they're putting together. The skill-based hiring, using technology both to identify the skill sets that are most valuable within the organization and matching the right employees to them, to the ability to offer them something like a learning management system where they can go out and develop new skill sets that are going to make them a more valuable employee or make their jobs better, more productive for that organization. And then that last part is that well-being technology for organizations. So a lot of it is actually around mental health and giving employees things like lifestyle benefits that they can tap into and use as they see fit to feel, one, cared for by the organization, two, give them a little bit of that mental relief that allows them to be more engaged when they're at normal work hours. So, whoops, go back to. So some considerations and opportunities for all of you. I know many accounting firms are looking to move into more advisory and consulting with clients, especially as AI and technology has taken some of those spreadsheets and tax work out of the back door. So when it comes to HR, definitely looking at how employees are hiring, the multi-state capacity that they're operating in, how they're framing up job descriptions, great places that you can give some insight and overview to help your clients find better talent and retain them within the organizations. We're seeing a lot of firms lean into the benefits review and that personalization of that experience for employees with what they're able to offer. So things like compensation benchmarking, benefit benchmarking, looking at the demographics in the organization as Gen Z becomes more of the forefront and the baby boomers age out, is the organization pivoting and shifting to adapt to those new generations that are operating within their workforce. And then finally, succession planning underneath organizational design is probably one of the larger conversations I'm having with many of these companies. Is leadership is retiring as family generations are building out, particularly the construction industry. We're seeing a lot of this in, and understanding how that succession planning is going to play out, what skill sets needed, and how they're going to bring in new technology or new people support in order to continue to achieve the company goals. When it comes to compliance, being attuned to some of those state laws or partnering with someone who can help keep your clients attuned to what those state laws are will keep them out of trouble. It's also about giving the employee what they deserve based on where they're operating. So employees, when organizations focus on compliance, employees feel more cared for. Then they know that they're getting the right leave act, when they know that they're getting taken care of from a state leave mandate, it makes them care that the organization is invested in them and that they're operating in a compliant manner. I was talking with a nonprofit the other day who was in a couple of different states and they weren't doing everything correctly, and we were helping give them some guidance. And they were actually really excited to be able to go to their employees and be like, we've made a partnership that's allowing us to give you more of what you deserve. And we talked about how they were going to frame up some of the changes they were making in terms of their employee handbook and their paid time off policies. And they're able to spin it in a really good way that makes the employees feel better taken care of overall. So you can help them, one, identify where these gaps are, but two, also help with that messaging back out to the workforce about those changes that are coming into play. And then finally, from a technology standpoint, AI, we're all learning, we're all growing with it, but this is a huge area of opportunity for organizations, whether it's using AI or bringing into the organization ERP installations as more companies look to harness more technology to handle some of the work that they're doing inside their doors, consulting around HRIS systems and how they're managing their workforce, all important areas that you can get yourself involved in to become even more of a valuable advisor to your clients. So appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much today. And any questions, feel free to follow up with me directly. Thanks, Rebecca. I appreciate you having us.
Thank you so much, Laura. Just checking real quick to see if any other questions came in. I don't see any more. I think we were able to answer them all. So a lot going on, a lot of opportunities too. I love how you ended on that because there's certainly a lot of challenges and a lot of complexity, but great opportunities to serve our teams well, serve our clients well as well. So thank you, Laura. Thank you all at MACPA. We look forward to seeing you next month for our town hall, and then hopefully maybe at our Converge event or our AI Foundations event as well. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend.